Matt Hall and Grant Flanders of K-State Online here from Morgantown after K-State loses 35-6 to number 12 West Virginia, a game they were never really in. We're going to get started with some talk about quarterback because I think that's the story coming out of this, and we'll explain to you why. First, we're going to play a couple clips from you. One, when Bill Snyder was asked about Alex Delton's play. Another when he was asked about the play of Skylar Thompson today.
I thought Alex played extremely well. Why the fourth quarter? I mean, the only response to it is, I probably should have played him a little bit earlier. How do I think Skylar played? Not as well as he's capable.
Okay, that's obviously what Bill Snyder had to say. We talked to the quarterbacks after. We have two clips to play for you. I asked Skylar Thompson if he was surprised when he left the game when he did, and also asked Alex Delton how he learned of coming into the contest.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, they told me Coach came over to me right before the drive. Coach Snyder did, and told me I was coming in. So, yep.
Okay, so here's why we're talking about this situation. It's become pretty clear, Flando, over the last couple weeks, at least to me, that Bill Snyder has a strong preference to play Alex Delton over Skylar Thompson. I think he's expressed that the last couple of weeks in press conferences. I didn't think he had it much today, and I think it's become a bit of an issue. You can tell me I'm wrong, Flando, but what are you seeing from the comments we heard in postgame today?
Yeah, I think those clips that they just saw and what you just said is spot on. Bill Snyder obviously likes Alex Delton more than Skylar Thompson to play in the football game, and we saw that. We saw as Bill Snyder came up to Delton and told him to go in the game without other coaches really getting involved as well. So as far as that goes, I completely agree. I think Bill Snyder prefers Alex Delton over Skylar Thompson.
And I think the confusing thing, to us as we're talking about it right now is the wording he used for Alex Delton was that he played extremely well. Yeah. We're not here to knock Alex Delton or praise Skylar Thompson or either, but the wording is interesting. Alex Delton played about a quarter and a half today, put 3 points on the board on a drive that started at the West Virginia 30. He also took 2 sacks on third downs that pushed K-State back in the deeper field goal range. Skylar Thompson wasn't great either for sure today, but he was around 70% completions. Had 2 touchdowns dropped in the end zone. Were standing in right before he was taken out of the game. So it just seems like a game where, if nothing else, Flando, they played similar games, if not Skylar Thompson playing better. But the coach still, again, thinks one played extremely well.
Yes.
Said the other was okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing is Skylar Thompson is struggling out there to get the ball down the field because his receivers are struggling to get free and open. He also is having struggles with the offensive line as well. I mean, they did decently pass blocking, but probably one of their worst games pass blocking, giving out so many sacks. But as far as that goes, I do think similar performances from the quarterbacks. But, yeah, you still see a Skylar Thompson who's looking to throw the ball down the field more, where Alex Delton making one read and then trying to scramble for a first down.
Exactly, and the point is not to necessarily even for us to compare the games with the quarterbacks. I think a smart fan or a smart coach could have watched both and said one guy was a little better, the other was a little better. Neither was great. That's not the point. It's just we continue to hear one praised extensively by the head coach and the other not, even after similar performances. But that's not the whole story today, but I think it is the big one. I think as we go into next week, I'd be surprised if Alex Delton doesn't get the start against Texas.
Yeah, me too, by the sounds of it. Bill Snyder obviously might start taking the reins on what happens with this team, being the one to say to Alex Delton, go ahead and in. But as far as that goes, I still think Skylar Thompson should be the #1 guy from what I saw today, but I agree with you. I think by what it sounded like from postgame, they might as well go with Alex Delton next week against Texas.
Not all about the quarterbacks today. Of course, lots of other issues out here on the field in Morgantown. K-State gets 4 turnovers. Some of them gifted to them, to be quite honest, from West Virginia. Flando, I think if we'd come into this game and said K-State will get 4 turnovers, 3 picks from Will Greer, I believe, and then a fumble on a handoff, they'd have been in good shape. They couldn't take advantage of those. West Virginia handled this one really from the opening snap until the final gun.
No, they couldn't. And West Virginia really on a few of those turnovers bit themselves in the foot because
you could have said butt there.
But and because of that, huge turnovers for K-State. If you would have asked me too, 4 turnovers going into the game, I would have said K-State has a good chance to at least make this a close game. That wasn't the case. The offense struggled throughout, and that's just what it came down to. Defense wasn't great either. We didn't see many blitz packages of that sort to try to get Will Greer out of the pocket, out of his comfort zone. But they made some plays and they were +3 in the turnover battle, so I think that is good for the defense, but they couldn't capitalize.
Correct, yeah. There was a portion of the game where K-State may have been in a little bit down, just 7-0, I believe, had the ball on a 4th and 1. I have no criticism of Bill Snyder choosing to go for that.
Yeah.
I thought it was the right call at the time. We can, of course, question whether the option was the right call. Talking in post-game, there were some communication issues where I think Skylar Thompson initially wanted to run a quarterback sneak. He saw the entire defensive line lined up over the gap right over the center, tried to switch it out. Perhaps the entire offense didn't get it. Him and Alex Barnes both acknowledged West Virginia was in a perfect defense to stop with it. Running was the option. I don't criticize, again, that effort, the play call, that kind of stuff. But after that game, West Virginia goes down and scores. And then the real killer, I think, was in the last minute of the first half. K-State couldn't have played a softer defense, allowed West Virginia to march on the field. Didn't even need to use timeouts with 57 seconds left to really put the game away at 21-0 at halftime.
Yeah, it was just a game where it wasn't in K-State's reach from the beginning, and it was something that Will Greer handled even with picks. He kept his composure and kept making plays down the field. Sills had a great game. Marcus Sims put up huge numbers against K-State. And yeah, it was a defensive showing. Also, we saw Jonathan Durham and McPherson in the game near the end, and they also both made some plays, but interesting that they were in there.
Well, both made interceptions, actually. Both Durham and McPherson. Both were in due to injury, I believe. Walter Neal got knocked out of the game with an injury, as did Kendall Adams. So for a secondary, already lacking depth, with Denzel Gouldsby out for the season. Keevan McGee did not play today. I don't believe, I didn't see him in there. I saw Darrell Patterson in. So to be down again at nickel and safety, we don't know how serious, is not a good thing going forward. We did talk, of course, to the number of Wildcats after the game. Jordan Mitty, of course, was not prepared for K-State to be at 2-2 at this point of the season.
I mean, it's disappointing. You never prepare to lose, so it is disappointing. But we just got to go back to work.
Unfortunately for Mitty and the Wildcats, they are indeed 2-2. We'll return home next week to play Texas, a team that right now, as we're recording this, it was leading TCU at last knowledge, has beat USC last week, probably has a lot of confidence. How big of a matchup is this for K-State next week, and what can K-State do over the course of the week to get themselves on the right track before the Longhorns come to Manhattan?
Yeah, 2-2 now. You don't want to drop under 500, and that's what it's going to come down to, beating Texas to do that. Tough to do. Yeah, they started off slowly, but as you said, in a tight game at TCU right now, which is a great team, and then handling USC at home last week. So it's going to be tough. They're going to have to get into practice and get into a zone, but it's going to have to be a win for K-State if they're going to want to get back on track.
Absolutely. We'll talk about that all this coming week on K-State Online. For Grant Flanders, I'm Matt Hall. Tell your friends.